as well, which I will get to in a second. But understand that every single thing that we mentioned here, every single thing that we have reported on here on this broadcast for months before the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was even implemented and before they even entered the Strip, has now happened. Now, a lot of you guys already know I've talked extensively about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. It's a fake charity, fake aid group that was designed by the U.S. and Israel to overtake all aid distribution in the Gaza Strip with the sole purpose of causing chaos and targeted and actions of the starving population of Gaza that is desperate for aid. And the entirety of the world's humanitarian groups obviously criticize this. It is perfidy. It is illegal. This is illegal. Utilizing aid distribution and creating a military purpose for aid distribution is illegal, right? This is a civilian population that you are starving. But of course, genocide and cleansing is illegal. So this is just more illegal. You seem disappointed. Bro isn't racist. What do you mean? What? Which bro? A lot of confusing takes I'm hearing from chat. Was waiting for you to take on the idea of being ordered to fire on civilians report. No, we're going to get to that in a second. This dovetails into that. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which was already controversial from its inception, has had a litany of legal complications as well. It's based out of Switzerland, and even the Swiss government has talked about potentially prosecuting them or potentially uncovering who their funders are. We already know that it's the United States and Israel. These are two belligerents in this cleansing campaign in Gaza, and the humanitarian aid distribution in general has to be done by independent third parties, right? And yet this is not the case. These are belligerent occupiers that are engaging in an unjust war, a war of extermination. It's an cleansing campaign. But they're also running out of money, I guess. And because they're running out of money, the United States is now going to offer additional funds, $30 million to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, even though since the GHF overtook aid distribution in the Strip, it has been incredibly according to Haaretz reporting that confirmed our reporting from both Drop Site News and also Palestinian journalists in perpetuity for the past month or so, that they are actually, the Israeli occupying force is, as a matter of fact, actually striking. Yeah, hold on. Sorry, there's a lot of chaos happening in the background here. My mom and dad. Açtım. Okay.
The United States is to give $30 million in funding to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is a US and Israeli-backed body set up to distribute aid in Gaza. It's the first known direct US funding for the group. The GHF, backed by armed US contractors and Israeli troops, has been operating in the Strip since the end of May following an 11-week aid blockade by Israel. On Tuesday, the UN said more than 400 Palestinians had been killed in recent weeks by the Israeli military while trying to collect food at the distribution sites.
Yeah. Update. Gaza Health Ministry releases numbers broken up day by day of Palestinians killed and injured near aid distribution sites run by the Israeli and American-run Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. As of yesterday, the number is 549 aid seekers have been killed, 4,066 have been injured, and 39 are still missing. Okay? They are using the aid as bait to draw in Palestinian civilians, a starving population that they've deliberately starved, desperate for food, as a trap to assassinate, execute, kill as many Palestinians as they want to. It is a killing field. Okay? That is precisely what this is. Now, in the process of doing this, there's also some chaos that they've implemented already at the the aid distribution drops even before the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation came in with American mercenaries that are being protected by the Israeli occupying force. One of the things that the Israeli government did openly, which, again, we reported on, but then the Israeli government openly took ownership over, is a criminal element of ISIS affiliates amongst different clans within the Gaza Strip that they have armed and offered gear to, so that they can extort the truck drivers and all of the other people that are delivering aid into the Strip by force. These ISIS affiliate gangs, now known as the Popular Forces, are working inside of the red zones. Red zones are areas that are already de facto fields, right? If you are Palestinian and you are inside of a red zone, Israel will kill you. Israel does kill you with either drones or, direct gunfire. Okay? However, the ISIS affiliate drug dealers that were previously imprisoned for either being ISIS affiliates, collaborators with the Israeli state, or drug dealers are now open and operating in the impunity created by the Israeli state. The Israeli government offers them protective fire with drones as the remainder of the civil police system that exists in the Strip, which is obviously marginal, is trying to actively combat these gangs, and also Hamas is actively combating these gangs as well. Part of the reason why this is also happening is because Israel has successfully gotten America to stamp out UNRWA by falsely smearing UNRWA as aiding and abetting in October 7. This is false. They have never actually shown even a fraction of evidence to suggest this. They've simply claimed it, and the American government also claimed it after Israel claimed it, and then they turned around and shut off UNRWA. And then they also stopped other aid groups that previously were sanctioned by the Israeli government, or previously allowed to operate in the Gaza Strip by the Israeli government, to even enter the Gaza Strip. The entire purpose of this is to starve the Palestinian population, okay? But the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was created as a trap, as an aid trap, so that they could still operate with some semblance of legality in their own estimation, something that Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who is far right himself, has openly admitted. There has to be some kind of aid distribution. It's basically like the aid pier that the previous administration had designed to make it seem to international authorities that there is like some kind of legal protective cover, that they aren't directly and deliberately starving, maliciously starving the entire Palestinian population, because that is an undeniable war crime that makes it impossible to play the song and dance that they're not actually invested in, even though we all know that they are. Okay? But because this has been a deliberately disastrous process, and more than 400 people have been killed, a lot of them children, by the way, like straight up children that have been sniped, executed according to firsthand testimony from other Palestinians that have survived, being lined up and being executed, sometimes by the Popular Forces, which is, like I said, the ISIS affiliate forces that Israel has aided and abetted, and other times directly by the Israeli occupying force, that because of the controversies, this group has not obviously been able to accrue necessary funds to continue operations. So now the United States government is offering $30 million to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Well, let's speak to our Gaza correspondent, Rushdie Abu Alouf, who's in Cairo for us. Rushdie, just explain why we're seeing the level of casualties, according to the UN and other sources, at these distribution sites, how concentrated the crowds are around them, because there are just 4 main sites, aren't there?
Yeah, and all of them are in the south, not in the north, where half of the population exists. In the south, they have 4 distribution centers.
Who composes the ISIS groups, and what incentive do they have to target innocent Palestinians? I mean, there are always going to be opportunists and collaborators that think that they can maybe take control over the Gaza Strip inevitably if this ethnic cleansing campaign ends. So, you know, there have always been collaborators that work with Mossad and collaborators that work with the Israeli occupying force. These guys were previously working with the Israeli occupying force. They're comprised of people that its leadership structure are known collaborators and known ISIS affiliates that used Rafah tunnels to bring in drugs into the Gaza Strip and sold drugs in order to make money. Now they just make money directly because Israel is paying them to do this. They engage in the process of extortion and steal aid. Part of the reason why they do this, I suspect, is so that Israel can film them stealing aid and then say, this is Hamas stealing aid, when it's the exact opposite, as a matter of fact. Some of them are Palestinians. I think a lot of them are Palestinians. And you know, some of them probably have come into the Strip from outside at one point or another when there was an opportunity to enter the Gaza Strip. There are always collaborators that exist in conflicts. So there's also reports that came out yesterday from a pharmacist in Gaza that they were potentially putting oxycodone pills inside of the flour bags. Not sure how serialized this is, not sure how common this is, but there is additional reporting on this coming from Drop Site News as well, which I will get to in a second. But understand that every single thing that we mentioned here, every single thing that we have reported on here on this broadcast for months before the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was even implemented, and before they even entered the Strip, has now happened. That this was simply a direct and a utilization of aid distribution as a form of war to continue achieving military goals, which is, again, illegal. They are not only starving the Palestinian population, but then they're offering a crumb of food in the process to, you know, the Palestinian children that trek miles and miles to get there, that avoid gunfire. They shoot deliberately at the Palestinians that are trying to receive aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Rafah, one in Khan Yunis, and one in the middle camps, and it's all in an area under Israeli security control. So there is always a presence of Israeli troops around, not inside the centers. And we see every night thousands of people. They gather, they queue, and then they push towards the center in under darkness where the troops are there. And every night we get report about Israeli drones and tanks open fire on the ground. When we did ask the people, why you go, why you risk your life, they always say, because we have no other alternative. They prefer the old mechanism of food distributing to their doorstep, or at least to their neighborhoods. And the only organization capable of doing this is the UN agencies, which the Americans are not supporting, and they prefer this new Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
And Rushdie, just very briefly, what is the hope that that situation may improve for Gazans in desperate need of aid with this huge injection of funds from the US?
Well, from Gaza point of view and Palestine, the people who work in this aid organization, $30 million is very little.
My friend is a nurse serving with the Doctors Without Borders in Gaza right now, and says that every time food distribution is announced, they get ready for an influx of wounded, and they haven't even been wrong yet. They've had thousands upon thousands of wounded to care for thus far. Yeah, 4,000 plus wounded since the GHF bullshit started. And when we say wounded, it's not like a light graze, okay? We're talking like people whose legs have been shot off. People who got shot but survived somehow, like that type of wounding.
Little comparing to what is needed. Each truck costs about $500,000, and Gaza needs 400, 500 trucks every day. So the people were appreciating, and any money given to Gazan, but this $30 million is considered very little to what is Gaza really need.
Rushdie, thank you.
On Abu Shabab, Israeli reports are saying the gang is having difficulties getting out of their small area, so they're upset at him over that. Yeah. Israeli report warns relying on Abu Shabab's militia in Gaza is destined to fail. Part of the reason why is because while Israel has offered them protective cover with drones and also given them arms and gear to be able to cause destabilization in the Strip, they're still getting their shit pushed in by Hamas soldiers and routinely getting I think like they basically eviscerated half of Abu Shabaab's militia, the Popular Forces, the ISIS affiliates militia in the region at one point or another, and they just can't keep up at all. Israel appears to have suffered yet another setback in its ongoing war on the Gaza Strip, this time due to its reliance on a militia that it is recently armed and funded in the hope of it playing multiple roles, including supporting the Israeli army and replacing Hamas's power on the ground. The Israeli newspaper Yediot Ahronot has reported that the militia led by Yasser Abu Shabab is struggling to fulfill the task Israel had expected it to carry out in the Gaza Strip to help establish control over the territory. According to the paper, the militia consists of 400 fighters and is mainly operating in the buffer zone near Rafah. They set up headquarters inside of the red zone. It's literally an Israeli headquarters that they are operating out of. It has so far failed to expand its presence beyond this limited area. In a recent statement, the militia whose leader, Abu Shabab, was previously mentioned in the United Nations internal memo as being responsible for the systematic looting of humanitarian aid, said, "We expect an immediate solution to the problem of aid theft. Distribution will take place under a new mechanism to ensure that every citizen receives his share. However, it remains unclear whether the militia will be involved in the distribution process, how it would do so, and to what extent, while the U.S.-funded Gaza Humanitarian Foundation continues its operations in the Strip." Meanwhile, the militia's deputy leader, whose forces are working alongside the Israeli army, accuses Hamas of leading a coordinated campaign to seize aid shipments. Meanwhile, this is what the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is doing. This is from Job Site News from yesterday. The Israeli occupying force Palestinians waiting for aid on Salah al-Din Street in Wadi Gaza. On Facebook, the GHF page announced the opening of the distribution point only to close it 4 minutes later. 4 minutes of aid delivery immediately followed by gunfire on innocent, starving Palestinians. If it isn't a death trap, then what is it? 15 human rights and legal organizations have warned that privatized humanitarian operators in Gaza about the risk of legal liability for complicity in serious violations of international law. This was part of the reason why the initial leader of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a former Marine sniper turned into a private mercenary, quit one day after the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was slated to start its distribution scheme. Literally, he was like, "I don't want to put my name on this. This is completely unacceptable." There have also been reports of other former mercenaries, oftentimes, again, American soldiers that are now mercenaries that say, that have reported in the news, like in Zeteo as well, under anonymity, that their aid distribution mechanism is simply a deadly affair for the Palestinians. GHF announced that the Wadi Gaza distribution site opened and then shut just 4 minutes later. Minutes later, Israeli soldiers opened fire on Palestinians still waiting nearby on Salah al-Din Street. They are reaching new levels of evil. Yes, I'm going to talk about that as well. Just hold on. While all of this is happening, the Palestinian resistance forces have also been able to successfully resist against the Israeli occupying force in numerous parts of the Strip, including the famous Khan Yunis Merkava tank explosion that turned into a death trap for 7 Israeli occupying force soldiers that literally burned to death inside of a $30 million tank that had its hatch open, where a Palestinian resistance force soldier from the Al-Qassam brigades walked up with an explosive ordnance, dropped it directly inside of the tank, and walked away when he was under fire. 7 of the Israeli occupying force soldiers were killed in the process, and another 17 in the second armored personnel carrier were wounded in the process. That was actually an APC. Oh, I thought it was a Merkava tank. I guess it was an APC. 2 APCs were targeted, and there were, I think, a total of like 15 wounded and taken out of battle, and 7 that died in the first APC. There's also continued sniper operations as well. I like how you started calling the Palestinian resistance soldiers. I mean, that is what they are. That is what they're doing. They are engaging in the legal and morally righteous act of resistance against an ethnic cleansing campaign being conducted by a belligerent occupier. So they are quite literally legally doing this. Whereas the Israeli occupying forces are illegally engaging in an act of ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing is already illegal to begin with, but even the very fact that they are belligerent occupiers on the Gaza Strip is already a matter that is illegal as well. These tactics also were utilized by Jewish partisans during the Holocaust, during World War II as well, for the record. What the Palestinian resistance is doing was also a legal and moral right given to partisans of all different backgrounds, but certainly Jewish partisans as well. You know, to add to the I guess sad irony of it all. Head of controversial Gaza agency tells Sky News there's a campaign to shut it down.
Palestinians are coming for food and they are finding bullets. A bullet whistles past and they duck for cover. This was filmed on Thursday morning near the Netzarim corridor in the middle of Gaza. The approach to a food distribution site run by Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. GHF has previously denied there have been any incidents or fatalities at or near its sites. But this was Friday morning in the same area, near the GHF site. The man on the right was shot in the head. The UN says that more than 400 people have been killed seeking aid. But speaking to Sky News, the head of GHF said those numbers were disinformation.
Okay, this is an active conflict. Almost anything that happens in the Gaza Strip is gonna take place in proximity to.
Yeah, they found a new chair for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. His name is Johnny Moore. I believe he's like a former ADL guy too, because the previous Marine sniper who was supposed to be tasked with this role quit because he was like, "This is Holocaust shit that you guys are doing. I don't want to participate in this." Now, of course, what he's saying is an abject lie, because the very purpose of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation serves is a scheme. Okay, it's an aid trap scheme. It's perfidy. It is illegal, because in prior instances of aid delivery, this did not happen. Was there chaos? Yes. Was that chaos caused, like in the Flower Massacre, directly by IDF gunfire? Absolutely. And every single time, the chaotic aid delivery mechanism has been kept stabilized by the existing Palestinian police force, which is not affiliated with the armed wing, Al-Qassam of Hamas. They are simply the civil police force. And Israel has returned the favor, because they want chaos at the point of aid delivery, by assassinating the cops, by assassinating the police chief, as a matter of fact, because their job is to make this process as chaotic as possible, because their goal, their overall ambition, which is something I think everyone understands at this point, is to kill as many Palestinians as possible. Why the f*** are you lying? Oh my God, quit lying. At this point, 20 months into this ethnic cleansing campaign, if you still think that this is a lie, I don't know how else to explain it to you. You do not understand. Oh yeah, here, ADL launches task force to protect minority communities of Middle East. He was a part of it. Yeah, Johnny Moore, evangelical leader and religious minorities activist, founder and CEO of the Karios Company, an elite public relations firm. In 2015, his novel Defying ISIS, Preserving Christianity in Place of His Birth in Its Own Backyard was published to wide acclaim. Johnny is the recipient of Simon Wiesenthal's Medal of Valor in 2017 for his work rescuing 149 Christians from persecution in the Middle East. And they put an evangelical psychopath in charge. Anyway, let's continue.
To something. And you know, the sort of key piece of disinformation is, you know, every single day, you know, some figure comes out from the Gaza Health Ministry.
This was another GHF site in the south on Monday. Eyewitnesses, not the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, told Sky News that several people were killed. And the IDF has...
Oh, God. Not the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. Eyewitnesses did.
Now said it is investigating reports of civilians being harmed. GHF is deeply controversial. Backed by Israel and the US, staffed by private ex-military contractors.
They're putting out aid for propaganda optics? No. The aid distribution has to happen, because if it doesn't, then legally speaking, they don't have any sort of protective cover to continue this ethnic cleansing campaign. Okay? So what they've done is basically create an aid distribution create an aid distribution process that gives very, very limited number of aid to the Palestinians that are already starving so that there is some semblance of legal cover. And that aid distribution is now in their control so they can use it for military purpose by doing exactly this, continuing along with their ethnic cleansing campaign, continuing along with their killing fields. The goal here is not to offer aid at all. The goal here is to avoid additional legal scrutiny because, as I've said this before, famine, like a blockade of humanitarian aid to a civilian population that is held captive by this belligerent occupier, Israel, is illegal, is so illegal that it's like impossible. It's more illegal than the calculation that Israel can claim it makes every time they kill like someone they consider to be a Hamas militant, right? Like Israel, within the, I guess, their own rules of engagement within the confines of quote unquote war, can say, oh, we killed 100 babies while we were trying to kill this one Hamas militant. Oh, well, I guess he wasn't a Hamas militant, but oops, that sucks. This was done by accident. There's like a level of plausible deniability under international law, even if that obviously doesn't work and no one believes it, right? There's still some kind of like legal argument that you can make against it. But if you shut off aid in its entirety, there is no legal argument you can make against that. It is extra illegal, if that makes sense. Like there is no defense of that whatsoever. There is no defense of that at all. So it's not for optics necessarily, but it's to not completely stop their it's an effort to completely it's an effort to not stop their entire operations of ethnic cleansing. Okay?
It is an alternative to the pre-existing system administered by the UN and other humanitarian agencies.
Yeah. Matt Duss says, it's critical to understand that the primary purpose of GHF is not delivering aid, but the targeted denial of aid to facilitate population transfer and ultimately expulsion. That's what this $30 million from U.S. taxpayers is funding, ethnic cleansing, a war crime. And it's not like Bezalel Smotrich is hiding the truth. And this isn't a random guy. This is the finance minister, okay? He's a high-ranking official in this administration. Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich says, so the world does not stop us and accuse us of war crimes, Smotrich says. The plan remains to drive all Palestinians south and then forcibly expel them from the land. He openly vows to continue Gaza's genocide until all Palestinians are expelled. He says 1.8 million left in Gaza, down from 2.2 million, is the minister admitting they killed 400,000 Palestinians in Gaza. He says move the 1.8 million or something around quickly to the south and then through the drains of the Morag axis into a sterilized humanitarian area, no Hamas, and give them food, the amount needed, and health, and then the Trump plan. From there, transfer them to relocation facilities outside of the Strip. The reason why they have to do that, the reason why they have to at least have like a crumb of aid go in is the exact same reason why the Gaza humanitarian pier was designed by the Biden administration. That was designed so that there was at least some protective legal cover for Israel to continue its ethnic cleansing campaign to say, look, no, we are doing aid distribution. We are allowing aid distribution to go in. Meanwhile, Israel was not allowing aid distribution to go in through the regular points of entry into the Gaza Strip because there were thousands of trucks waiting on the boundary, waiting to go in, and the food was just like rotting. Yeah, he says openly, Gaza aid, this was from last month, Smotrich says, Gaza aid is just enough to avoid war crimes charges while we annihilate the Strip. So the world does not stop us and accuse us of war crimes. The goal, he insisted, is to conquer, clear, and stay until Gaza is dismantled beyond recognition. Understand that. That is the reason why they're allowing a crumb of aid, and they won't even let like the regular aid to come in through regular points of entry with UNRWA and with all of these other humanitarian foundations that are independent that have still been verified and allowed to operate in the Strip by Israel. They're not letting them in because they want to control the aid distribution so they can keep killing people during the aid distribution process.
Critics say that under international law, humanitarian aid should be independent rather than under the control of a belligerent. Huda Abu Salim says she encountered gunfire at a GHF aid point earlier this week where she managed to get food. She has to pick out the stones before she can cook it.
All along the way, you're hiding. You hide here, then run, then hide again. At any moment, they might shoot you. You might make it back, or you might not. I witnessed death firsthand. Bodies lay bleeding on the ground all around me. This is not right. Food should be delivered to UN warehouses, and this entire operation must be shut down.
Israel says GHF is necessary because Hamas is seizing aid shipments, although it has not provided evidence.
Yeah, that's not true. Hamas is not cutting the point of distribution of aid or stealing aid. That is bullshit. That has been bullshit. As a matter of fact, the only people that have tampered with aid distribution have been criminal elements, which Hamas has unironically executed for the crime of disrupting the aid delivery mechanism. There have been instances of chaos at the point of distribution because people are starving, but outside of like the regular civilians trying to desperately get as much aid as they possibly can so they can survive, beyond that point of chaos, which again, Israel wants, the only groups that have actually caused chaos and tried to steal aid or extort the truckers that bring in the aid is the Abu Shabaab militancy, okay? The ISIS affiliate militancy, now known as the Popular Forces, that are being directed by the Israeli occupying forces that get all their gear from Israel. They get paid by Israel to do this.
Some food is getting in, but not nearly enough. Only an average of 56 trucks per day, when the UN says the people of Gaza need hundreds. Arguments about disinformation are one thing, but that is the most basic of facts.
Okay.
Now, before we move on away from this, there's more information on this as well. There's new reports that have come out about the Gaza government media office saying that oxycodone has been found in the U.S.-backed aid flour bags. We covered this yesterday. There's also the Haaretz report as well that I'm going to get to. But the Gaza government media office is saying that Israeli and U.S.-backed aid centers are committing a heinous crime after citizens found narcotic pills identified as oxycodone hidden inside of flour bags distributed through the controversial death trap centers. 4 separate testimonies have been collected so far, with officials warning that some pills may have been crushed and mixed into the flour itself, posing a threat to public health. The media office blamed the Israeli occupation for using drugs as a soft weapon in a dirty war aimed at dismantling Palestinian society from within, calling it an extension of the ongoing genocide. The statement urges Palestinians to avoid aid centers, inspect all flour supplies, and report any suspicious substances. Families were also urged to educate the children on risks of both narcotics and visiting the sites. The release called for the UN Human Rights Council and the ICC to immediately shut down the aid centers and enforce aid delivery only through official UN bodies like UNRWA. According to the Gaza authorities, the so-called death traps have already caused the deaths of 549 people, injuring over 4,000, and have led to 39 deaths from starvation in just 1 month. Okay? There are 4 different individual testimonies and photos coming out of potential oxycodone pills being found inside of these flour bags, and the fear is that they want to keep the Palestinian population both starving, desperate, and also drug them basically with the aid. Ironically enough, you can't get oxycodone pills into the Gaza Strip for healthcare purposes, for the record. Israel, on the one hand, will not allow any sort of painkillers or any sort of drugs whatsoever to enter the Gaza Strip. They have deliberately cut off humanitarian aid of that sort on purpose. These hospitals could use those pills, but the only time they can get those pills is if they pump it into the food supply. It is an opioid, highly addictive. It is not enough to incinerate Palestinians, to bomb them, shoot them, starve them, maim them, to destroy healthcare infrastructure so they're vulnerable to diseases. They have to sow addiction to one of the worst and most destructive diseases. Now, this is, again, this is just firsthand testimony at this point. It will be very difficult to figure out exactly what took place, given that the healthcare infrastructure is completely destroyed and there's no independent outside observers that can come in and take a look at what's going on. There is also the Haaretz report that I want to talk about as well. Obviously, I don't know if there's any video of the Haaretz report, but I guess here, look at this real quick. The Canada digital tax thing real quick.
I want to bring you some breaking news that is coming to us from the United States in the last few minutes. President Donald Trump has said that the U.S. is immediately ending trade talks with Canada and that is in response to the country's digital services tax on U.S. technology companies. So Donald Trump calling the tax a direct and blatant attack. Let's go straight to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Holkert. She is now live for us. So, Kimberly, this news just coming in to us in the last few moments. How much of a surprise is this announcement likely to be?
It is a surprise, given the fact that the Canadian Prime Minister Carney was very, very much involved in reaching out, trying to mend fences over trade disputes with Donald Trump in advance of the G7, which took place in Alberta, Canada. And given the fact that they, in their bilateral meeting there, did leave that meeting, and the readout said that they had promised to, within 30 days of the G7, come to a conclusion on the security as well as trade arrangements between the two countries. But what seems to be angering the U.S. president is the fact that while these discussions were taking place, the Canadian Prime Minister has decided that there will be a digital tax put on the U.S. products operating in Canada and businesses as well. And so as a result, the U.S. president now terminating the discussions with Canada, saying that in the next 7 days, he will arbitrarily, along with his team, put in place a tariff that is yet
Dude, what do you think is going on? Do you think I haven't seen it? Do you think I haven't seen your demands to watch this 4-minute video? I have. Keep saying you can murder me too. It's like crazy.
Well, talk to us about possible repercussions from the...
Here. Another thing to obviously cover here is the Haaretz report that came out that got first-hand testimony from IDF soldiers, Israeli occupying force soldiers. The Haaretz newspaper published a report, a damning report that confirmed what Palestinian journalists have been saying for fucking months at this point, for the past month, basically. Okay?
Okay, let's go back to...
This is the report. IDF soldiers say they were ordered to fire at unarmed crowds near Gaza food distribution sites despite no threat being present. They used artillery, they used gunshots, and there was reports last week that they might have even used tanks. He said you were going to murder him live, i.e. rip into him for spamming, just so you know. No, I know. He's just crazy. That's why I banned him. Grenades and mortars as well. Here's the summary of it. Here's the breakdown. Haaretz confirms Israeli soldiers ordered to fire on unarmed, starving civilians at 8 sites. A major Haaretz investigation confirms Israeli soldiers in Gaza were ordered to shoot at unarmed Palestinians gathering near food distribution sites, even when they posed no threat. Soldiers described the areas as a killing field, noting there is no enemy and no weapons. Here are some of the most important findings from the report. 1. IDF officers said the killings aren't isolated mistakes, but a part of a pattern dubbed Operation Salted Fish, the Israeli version of red light, green light. We shoot, they run, we shoot again, one soldier said. This is our communication. Red light, green light, like from Squid Games. At least 549 Palestinians have been killed, as I've reported already, and over 4,000 wounded near these aid centers since May 27th, according to Gaza's health ministry. Many were waiting for UN food trucks. Testimonies reveal Israeli commanders instructed troops to open fire on civilians approaching aid sites before they opened or after they closed, using machine guns, mortars, and grenades. Soldiers described systematic live fire, including officers said they fire to signal to the population that this is a combat zone. Soldiers reported casualties every day. Another soldier recalled being told to fire a shell at a crowd to send a message. Israeli soldiers said demolition crews are often present at aid sites and that private contractors are being paid to level homes nearby. One fighter said people are being killed so someone can knock down a house and get paid. IDF officers told Haaretz the army suppresses footage from these sites, believing the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation helps preserve international legitimacy for the war. Israel's military prosecution has ordered the general staff's fact-finding assessment mechanism to investigate the shootings for possible war crimes. They're going to investigate themselves and find no wrongdoing. Netanyahu and Katz, of course, claimed that the Haaretz report, the expose on IDF intentionally shooting Gazans at aid centers, is a blood libel. Now, of course, as you know, at this point, 20 months into this ethnic cleansing campaign, whenever an Israeli official says something is blood libel, know that it is 100% true. When an Israeli official says something is blood libel, or someone who defends Israel, an Israel defender says something is blood libel, know that it is 100%, without a shred of doubt, absolutely the truth. Okay? It just simply means I can't refute this information, and I choose not to refute this information, and therefore I will just say it's fake, it's a lie, it's not real. I assume you saw this. Oh, we'll do it in a second. We'll get to that in a second. Let's
So our
continue.
top story now about Israeli soldiers who say they were ordered to shoot people near food distribution centers in Gaza. The Haaretz newspaper reports that some soldiers were told to fire heavy weapons to disperse people. Let's now speak to one of the journalists behind that report. Nir Hasan joins us from West Jerusalem. Nir, welcome to Al Jazeera. Good to have you with us. The headline is chilling. IDF soldiers ordered to shoot deliberately at unarmed Gazans waiting for humanitarian aid. It seems everyone, including ordinary hungry civilians, are deemed to be targets.
Yes, well, we know for the last months or so that there are some very violent incidents around those distribution centers in Gaza, and there were more than 500 casualties around those centers. And now me and my colleagues, Yaniv Kubovich and Bar Peleg, we brought testimonies by soldiers and commanders from the IDF that telling us the policy, the fire policy that that make this happen. What they are telling us is that the IDF is actually communicate the Gazan population by fired live ammunition.
Of course, Nir, this is not something we don't already know. I mean, our reporters have been reporting this has been going on for a long, long time. But it is surprising to hear it directly, isn't it, from those soldiers?
Yeah. Make no mistake. Make no mistake. This is not new information. And especially if you were in here for the past month, you already knew this, okay? This is simply confirmation coming from Israeli reporting, okay, from Haaretz. Now, Mohammed Shahada says, Haaretz's big expose today is literally word for word what we, Palestinians, have said 20 days ago. Like always, when we say it, it's a conspiracy theory. When Israeli journalists say it, it's groundbreaking, brave, and compelling. Make no mistake, I'm of two different minds on this. On the one hand, obviously, I trust the on-the-ground sources to explain what the conditions look like, okay? That's precisely the reason why we have been on this coverage for quite a while, for the past 20 days, as a matter of fact, almost a month. But having said that, given the way that the Western world operates on this stuff, treats Haaretz's reporting or Israeli reporting with a higher degree of priority, with a higher degree of legitimacy due to the pre-existing Islamophobic attitude that a lot of people unfortunately have, this is still important in moving the needle. Because what is on Haaretz today will inevitably make it to Western media maybe a month from now. Okay? That's just how it works. It's also always still good to get additional confirmation from the side that is literally shooting, even though the way that Haaretz works here, if you're wondering, like, how does this get past the military censors, for example, or how does this article get reported on? How does this article even get any sort of reporting being done? If they wanted to stop this, if they wanted to suppress these communications, they would. It's because it serves a secondary purpose. It sets the stage to say this was just simply outside of the normal confines of the operation down the line, if there's any sort of like war crimes investigation conducted once the dust is settled. Okay? It's the same. Mohammed Shahada continues, says, it's the same with apartheid, genocide, starvation, indiscriminate bombing, pogroms. Palestinians always sound the alarm first, only to be ignored, doubted, canceled, and shamed and deplatformed for narrating our stories. It's only when an Israeli says it that this counts. And I really hate you, BM says, and of course they always use language that makes it sound like it's some breach of protocols rather than a part of an openly genocidal state policy. It, of course, is a part of the deliberate attempt to starve and mutilate the Palestinian population, for the record. But it still serves a good purpose overall. Okay, Mohammed El Kurd says, oh, okay, oh, thank God Haaretz confirmed that these were not very credible. What these not very credible Palestinian journalists have been trying to say for the past month, or have been saying for the past month. What would we do without Haaretz? The testimony of Israeli soldiers is somehow more credible and carries more weight than their Palestinian victims is just good old-fashioned racism. You can call it strategy or spin it whichever way you like. It's still racist. This is true, which is why, obviously, I place heavy emphasis on Palestinian voices in the process. Make no mistake. Having said that, however, given that there are unimaginably racist people who still refuse to entertain the reality, okay? Look, he goes, source, Islamic-funded media. Like, dipshits like this. Is Haaretz a part of the Islamic-funded media structure? Is that what you're saying? This Israeli newspaper that actually confirmed the firsthand testimony of Palestinians that have suffered these insane attacks, these ruthless attacks at the point of aid distribution, that also have been reconfirmed time and time again by numerous international rights organizations, as a matter of fact, that correspond to the testimony of healthcare workers that are working in the Strip, both Palestinian, and if you place a lot more emphasis on the Westerners, white people like Doctors Without Borders, healthcare professionals that say every single time there's any sort of aid distribution, we know that there is going to be bloodshed. Islamic-funded state media, you say. This is the reason why it's still important to show Haaretz is reporting on it as well. That's my point. Do you understand? This is a way to basically hammer the truth to people who are maybe in the margins. I mean, even 20 months. One might say it's been 20 months. If someone still doesn't get it like them, but that shouldn't discourage you. That should not stop you. That should not discourage you. And it certainly should not stop you from trying to show people the truth, no matter how you can, okay? And when Haaretz actually does this kind of journalism, it does inevitably make its way, not to the bylines, but at least like a buried lead in a New York Times report a couple months later down the line.
Who are on the ground, who've been receiving those instructions and then carrying it out?
Yes, well, I think in the Israeli army, as well as in the Israeli society as well, there are some cracks in the feeling, in the understanding of what's going on.
The way he's describing it is that this is simply a breakdown of operational protocols. It's not true. It is deliberate. It is a deliberate killing field that has been created. But the reason why Haaretz is reporting on this is so that they can turn around and say, oh, it's just once again, a simple breakdown of operational procedures. I'm not even, stop. It was a minor blip. Shut the fuck up, chat. Yes, but I'm going to add something critical here. Yesterday, the New York Times published an atrocious piece that obfuscated and minimized the deliberate Israeli policy of killing Palestinian aid seekers. The way the New York Times sowed doubt in Israeli mentions by quoting the IDF as saying they shoot warning shots. This is meant to leave a gap for continued stated doubt for genocide denialism, where the Palestinians killed by Israelis on purpose or by stray bullets amidst the chaos. Today, Haaretz dropped a report which should, in principle, force an end to the speculation on the intention in the news cover. Explicitly name that they were ordered to kill Palestinians, and by who? Will it end the speculation on intention? No. Is it racist that Israeli perpetrators of genocide continue to be believed over their Palestinian victims? Of course. That remains one of the greatest crimes from this. Look at this. The lethal risk of seeking food in Gaza. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed over the past month near aid hubs set up under a new Israel-backed system, according to Gaza health officials. This is not an appropriate way to cover the story. Okay? This is not the truth. It is ridiculous. The lethal risk of seeking food in Gaza, like as though there's a naturally occurring phenomenon that while Palestinians who have been forcibly deprived of food by the Israeli state are desperately seeking out a crumb of aid from said Israeli state that is using the aid delivery mechanism to kill them is the truth. Ridiculous.
In Gaza. most of the Israelis, the great majorities of the Israelis and the great majorities of the IDF soldiers as well, still believe that the war in Gaza is just, and the IDF do what it does in Gaza because it's necessary for the security of Israel. However, I think in the last few weeks or months or so, there is some cracks in this in this understanding, in this in the Israeli discourse, if you like, and there are more and more people who are asking themselves, not only is this war is necessary, but also what is the humanitarian price that the Gazan population is paying for this.
Look at this. Look at these headlines. This is how they've covered the aid distribution scheme that every international aid organization in the United Nations have actually criticized for exactly what this aid distribution scheme looks like. The violent means to a violent end with respect to this aid delivery mechanism, this aid delivery scheme that they've cultivated. If you ask the New York Times, the lethal risk of seeking food in Gaza. I'll never try again. For some Gazans, seeking aid is just too risky. More violence near Gaza aid sites. Friday briefing, the deadly search for food in Gaza. It's always just like someone else. Who knows who's doing it? We will never know who's doing it. Who's doing it? Or Israeli military rejects a report that soldiers told to fire at Palestinians waiting for food after repeated deadly incidents. Who gives up what the Israeli military is rejecting, man? What are you talking about? They're genocidal liars. Like, what do you mean? What's crazier about this is, like, every day there is a fresh new hell that we watch, okay, happening in real time. There are moments from the Holocaust that we could point to where the Nazi Germany created a sanitized version of a concentration camp and then brought in their affiliate Red Cross investigators to show the world, to lie that this was actually not a scary concentration camp where people were dying, but the conditions were actually great. It was I think it wasn't a concentration camp, it was a ghetto, right? It was a sanitized ghetto, okay? We did not have the internet back then. We did not have the internet back then. We do now. The fact that they are still doing this when we know exactly what's happening, when the victims are directly communicating how it's happening with footage from their phones, and the media still goes, well, the Israeli military rejects the report. Like, they run with that as though the Israeli military statements hold any weight here whatsoever is insane.
This war.
Are people, do you think, widely,
do
you think people in Israel are widely cognizant, are widely aware of this instruction to kill civilians? And indeed, some are being killed by snipers, aren't they? We're continually hearing from doctors here in Al Jazeera treating the wounded who talk of people coming in with headshot wounds or their knees shot out.
That we just brought today didn't consider snipers. It's actually a practice of, as I said, controlling the crowd by fire. Like, if you want the crowd to run off a place, you shoot them at them, even though you know they're unarmed, and you use fire to move people from one point to another. But the question about what the Israelis knows or do not know about what's going on in Gaza, I think it's a very good question, because the mainstream media in Israel mostly do not deal with what's going on with the Gazan people. Not what I mean. They speak about what's going on in Gaza from the IDF side, but not about the humanitarian issues of the war.
Okay, just one final question there. Sorry, I'm sorry to jump in, but we are just running out of time. Very quickly,
yeah, sure.
Where is this coming from ultimately? This instruction to kill? It must be coming from the very top, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's come from pretty top in the Israeli army, but we don't know for sure.
What are the reasons for the shooting according to Israel? I haven't ever heard any reasons to try and justify it. They say they're communicating with large crowds through gunfire. Like that was the official reason, the official unofficial reason. They just say it's a lie. First of all, they've said their official statement on the report that came from Haaretz was that this is an abject lie. This is blood libel. Okay? The soldiers' justification for it is that they're using gunfire to communicate with the crowds. The real reason, the actual reason why they're doing this is because they want to kill as many people as possible. That's it. The sole purpose of all of these operations is to make the strip uninhabitable and expedite the process while still not reaching a certain point of international scrutiny that should have come a long time ago, of course, but expedite the process of ethnic cleansing.
We don't have the name of the officer who decide to use that method to control the people, but it have to be pretty high in the comment channel.
All right, Nir, thanks for joining us here on Al Jazeera. We'll leave it there. There's Nir Hasan from Haaretz speaking to us here on Al Jazeera. Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable